if you have to look back, take a step back, there has been a tumultuous time regarding to this industry. It's been volatile, I have to say, but there has been some resurgence in the last month or two. What would you say is the overall outlook right now for the industry as we head into Q4? Hey everyone, welcome to our latest Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Thanks for checking in. Big guest here today. He's been on our podcast before as we talk crypto. Volatile year for the industry, but we're seeing some resurgence in it. CEO of ARK Invest, Cathie once said actually recently in a podcast, she believes the crypto industry will be worth in just 6.5 years of $25 trillion. It's only 6.5 years away. So let's welcome back in American investor and hedge fund manager, Mark Yusko, back to the podcast. Good to see you. How are things?
Doing great, Shad. You know, you have like one of the great podcast voices of all time. It's just so good. So good.
You like that? If I had to do that again, I probably would screw it up. So I'm lucky I got that one out without any making mistakes. But how's the summer been? It's been good for you?
Summer was good. Yeah, we did a trip that we're supposed to do in 2020. The short version of a long tail is we have a caboose. So our youngest is 20 years younger than our second. And his babysitter has spoken solamente español since he was 5 weeks old.
Yeah.
So he is bilingual. I am not. He is. And his babysitter wanted to take us to Spain to meet her family. And so we did. But we were supposed to do it in 2020 and took 3 years to kind of get the momentum back. And we did. We did a 2-week trip into Spain and Portugal, and it was amazing. I would move to Portugal like right now.
I love Portugal.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I want to go back to Nazaré in November when they have the 80-foot wave that kicks up.
Exactly. We did not go because the waves weren't there. So we're like just staring out at water.
Yeah.
The same anywhere. But in fact, there's a guy I work with. His family's from there. His dad was a fisherman there.
Yeah.
And he says, "Hey, we'll do an event there. We'll do a crypto event there." I'm like, I'm in. I'm in.
It's amazing.
It would be amazing.
Did you walk out to the lighthouse up on the escarpment there in Nazaré? Were you in that town?
No, we decided not to do that trip. So we spent most of the time south.
Okay.
Should you go to the Algarve?
It's just, exactly.
Oh, nice.
Algarve's awesome. Yeah.
So nice. Some of the little boat tours they can do in there and some of the caves. It's pretty.
Incredible. No, it's just amazing because it's the size of Indiana, right? It's not, Portugal's not very big. And the thing I took away that I thought was really interesting, and then we can talk about crypto, was for about 100 years, Seville, Spain, down to Lisbon was the center of the universe.
Yeah.
Like literally the center of the universe. There was no New World. There was no North America. There was no South America. They were uninhabited. India had not really been discovered. And Spain and Portugal cut a deal. And Portugal said, all right, Spain, you guys go west and we're going to go east, because they were smart. Yeah. They realized that a jar of cinnamon was worth more than your life.
Yeah.
Back then, right. So the spice route was important. So they sent Vasco da Gama to do the spices, and they let, Christopher go west. But this young, queen basically was the first venture capitalist, and she funded the discovery of the world. And I didn't actually ever think about this, but I thought it was really cool. Horses, cows, pigs, chickens, none of them were endemic to the United States or South America. And the tomato and the potato were not from Ireland and Italy. They crossed. So the only reason there are horses and pigs and chickens in America is because they came from Spain and Portugal. And the only reason there are tomatoes in Italy is because of South America.
Well, I just learned something new. I did not know that.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. We were sitting in the room where the Queen gave Columbus the sacks of gold to go discover this.
Yeah.
Was this the palace? Was this the palace in Sintra?
Exactly.
Yeah. I've been to Portugal a bunch of times. My wife surprised me for my 30th with a trip to Portugal.
Love it.
And we did the whole thing. And then we've been back like a couple times afterwards.
Yeah.
Loved it.
That palace was amazing.
Did that about 10, 12 years ago.
Just the history.
And reasonably priced, the country, I find.
So good. And look, they just did away. And actually, today is the last day. So rest in peace, Golden Passport.
But
But for a number of years, if you bought a property more than 500,000 euros and spent 2 weeks a year for 5 years, you got a passport.
Wow.
It was good in 26 nations in the EU. And today was the last day. So
shoot.
But I would have done that. That seems like a pretty good deal.
Yeah. Well, we want to bring you in crypto. Like Cathie Wood in a recent podcast was saying that this is a $25 trillion industry and only 6.5 years away. That's not a long time. And she believes Bitcoin will be north of 650,000 during that time frame. Last time you were on, you were kind of saying some of these things. But if you have to look back, take a step back, there has been a tumultuous time regarding to this industry. It's been volatile, say, but there has been some resurgence in the last month or two. What would you say is the overall outlook right now for the industry as we head into Q4?
So the long-term outlook never been better. And that's just simply because in every technological evolution, every day that passes makes it better.
Yeah.
Because you have the failures, you have the foibles, you have the flaws that you find, you fix them and you build and you keep building. And so every day that passes, whether it was mainframes in the 50s, whether it was microchips in the 60s, whether it was a personal computer in 82, internet in 96, mobile net in 2010, and now the truth net in 2024. See, here's the crazy thing. Next year is only the first year of the true knee of the curve of the S curve. The previous 10 years was the warm up, right? S curves go like this. You get 10% over a decade, then 80% the next decade, then the last maturity over the next couple decades. And the first decade is for the pioneers and the early adopters and the Vasco da Gamas and the Christopher Colons that go out. I mean, this was crazy. So I'm standing at the lighthouse on the westernmost point of Europe in Portugal. You're staring out, you can see the earth curve. Like literally, you can see the horizon. The wind's blowing and it's 80 degrees and I'm cold, right? Because the wind, I'm like, who the hell got on a ship and said, I'm just going to sail that way?
No kidding.
Yeah.
Like that's what the early, when Bitcoin was 3 cents, that's what those people were. They were the pioneers and they take the arrows, right? And Vasco da Gama didn't come back. It was the second captain that claimed India. So in fact, what I also learned.
It's a great way of putting it. It's a really great way of putting it.
Yeah. Well, the point for years I talked about fractional reserve banking was invented by, I said, the Medicis.
Yeah.
But that was wrong because I had said that the Medicis borrowed, AKA stole, right? Picasso said, good artists borrow, great artists steal, good Spanish artists. And I said they borrowed this idea from some monks, but I didn't know who the monks were. Well, in Portugal, I went to the original site of the Templar Knights. They were the Portuguese monks, the Order of Christ, that started fractional reserve banking.
Wow.
Because these guys would go out on these quests. Some of them didn't come back. And so their gold that they were holding, they said, you know what? We should lend it out. And that's how banking started. And the Medicis did that. But the problem with the system and the reason the outlook has never been stronger for Bitcoin and for crypto is in the old days, I would lend Anthony money and he would come back and I had the book, right? Either it was a stone tablet or papyrus or a ledger. And I wrote down, he owes me $100. He comes back a year later, pay me 110. Yeah. And I'm an unscrupulous guy. And I got some bodyguards and I've changed the number to 200.
Yes.
And Anthony says, no, I only borrowed 100. Anthony, the book, it says 200.
Yeah.
I was looking at the bodyguards like, shit, I got to pay 200. Okay. So the Medicis came along and said, nope, that's a bad system. Anthony, you keep a book. Mark, you keep a book. And we, the benevolent Medicis, will say Shad is the Medicis. Shad says, I will arbitrate that, you guys write down the same number. So Anthony writes down 100. I write down 100. But in the year, I go to Shad and I'm like, Shad, I'll give you 50. So I'm going to write down 200. You take 50, I take 50, and Anthony has to pay us 200. And you're like, I like that. Good.
Yeah.
So Anthony comes back and, Shad's corruptible and I say, no, it says 200. And it's like, Shad, what the hell? And Chad's like, Anthony, you must have written down the wrong number.
Yeah.
I don't know, but.
Yeah.
And so here's the interesting thing. So we did a podcast a couple weeks ago with Scott Scornetta. Scott Scornetta is one of the co-fathers of blockchain technology.
Yep.
He and his partner literally coined the term. They invented it, cryptographic security. And I was talking to him about the aha moment. And like, in fact, if you read the white paper, the Bitcoin white paper, on the last page, there are 8 footnotes. 3 of them are his. He and Stuart Haber, 3 of the footnotes of Satoshi Nakamoto's work are Scott. And Scott says, well, here's the thing. You realize that we have all this information.
Yeah.
And we can chain it into these series of blocks. Hence blockchain. That was one aha moment. But the other one that was cool, he said, so I was thinking about this issue of confirming or affirming information. And 2 people need a third to look over their shoulder. But the third person's corruptible, so you need a 4th to look over the third. And you need a 5th to look over the 4th, and a 6th. So you need the whole world. Boom. That's a blockchain.
Right.
Blockchain's better. We don't need every person. We need a system, a distributed ledger that can verify truth. And the reason the outlook's never been better for crypto is we are on the verge, literally on the verge of replacing trust with truth.
Trust and truth.
And trust is a $7 trillion industry every year. The Medicis, the Morgans, the Rothschilds, the auditing firms, the accountants, they strip out $7 trillion from us, right? To have a bank account, it costs me money. To send you money, it costs me money. To get audited, it costs me money. All of those things are transactional costs that these guys have lived on for 800 years. And it created the greatest wealth and income inequality in the history of mankind. I should make the all-seeing eye there.
Yeah.
And I like that. That really
that's a good touch.
But it's kind of crazy. And so what blockchain allows us to do, what Bitcoin allows us to do, is to blow that system up.
Yeah.
And
do you think
you liberate, and I choose that term intentionally, because if you're in Lisbon, you hang out on the Avenida de República, and I'm sorry, the Avenida de Libertad, and República is in Spain, but the Avenida de Libertad is all about their liberty from Spain. And if you liberate $7 trillion and put it back in the hands of the people, what happens?
Yeah.
Human creativity gets unlocked. And the most powerful force in the world, other than compound interest, is human creativity. And anyway.
I watched the GOP debate last week. I couldn't help but notice, did you see Vivek Ramaswamy?
Yeah.
He wants to press like reset on the American and their identity and start looking at things where politicians are accountable and the banking system's accountable. You almost wonder in due time if this is part of his game plan and strategy. Because yes, there's a lot of people that need to be educated and learn, this system. But this in some ways is kind of like the Great Reset, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. Look, I mean, 800 years ago, the Medicis created this system, borrowed from the Knights Templar. Okay, great. And that system has been in charge, right? Yeah. All the Illuminati and all the stuff. And, it's a conspiracy theory. It's only a conspiracy if it isn't true. Truth is an absolute defense. Yeah. So it's all true, but whatever. But the Rothschilds came along in 1600 and changed the game. They created the first central bank. Because think about this. Portugal had the world reserve currency. They had the most powerful navy. You see the ships with the crosses on them, the Order of Christ. They ruled the seas because they had the tallest mast and the fastest ships. Spain took them over. Spain had the world reserve currency. France took them over. Then the Netherlands, about the size of Ohio, conquers the greatest general of all time, or maybe the second greatest general of all time, maybe Alexander the Great, and then, the short guy who actually wasn't very short, I guess he was 5'5", Napoleon. But how did that happen? Well, the Rothschilds created the first bank, central bank, that created money out of thin air. No longer backed by gold, no longer actual reserves. They could finance wars by printing money.
Right.
And
this is what we do.
And that's what we do all over the world. But here's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
That single family, because of that move in 1607, that single family, now it's a big ass family, right? A lot of descendants, more wealth in that one family than the bottom 6 billion people on the planet.
That's crazy.
The bottom 3/4 of the people on this planet have less wealth than a single family. Because in the 1800s, in late 1600s, a few of those Rothschilds went to the UK and created the Bank of England.
Right.
In the early 1700s. And then the Bank of England kind of messed up with the little colonies in America. And then in 1913, we borrowed the model, again, with the help of the Rothschilds. Because remember, the Fed is not federal, nor does it have any reserves. It is a private corporation
owned by the banks.
By the banks and these families.
Yeah.
It's owned by Rothschilds and Morgans and all these people. And its job is simply to enrich the banks. And how do they do that? They enrich banks by inflation.
Mm-hmm.
They print money, which makes the assets owned by the people at the top more valuable. So here's the thing. Over right outside my door that you can't see, I have a big piece of art made by this artist named Josie. And she's famous for the one she did of the woman that has the gas mask with the 2 Bitcoins on it. And she did that actually pre-COVID, which is amazing. So she did one honoring Venezuela. So I bought that one. And the whole back of the piece of art is bolivars.
Okay.
Like literally, 5,000 bolivar notes that are worthless, right? And she used them as the background. And then she has this woman with the gas mask. And it has this cool AR feature where you point your camera at the picture and suddenly all the bolivars catch on fire and you see Bitcoin behind it, the mask comes off and the Venezuelan flag comes out. I mean, it's really awesome. But here's the thing. If you stayed in bolivars over the last 3 years, while the Venezuelan stock market was the best performing stock market in the world, no one talks about that.
Was it?
You lost all of your money.
Yeah, I heard.
You lost all of your money. Now, had you converted those bolivars to Bitcoin or Dash or Monero or anything else, you're okay.
Yeah.
And so the power of an asset that is not able to be devalued by the people at the top. And here's the crazy thing. So you may not like Larry Fink, you may like whatever. You gotta admit he's one of the most powerful people in the world, right? He's the head of one of the largest companies in the world, maybe at the center of this Ukraine thing, but whatever. So like him, love him, hate him, whatever. He's a powerful guy, right?
Yeah.
5 years ago, what did he say about Bitcoin? Well, it's an index of money laundering.
Yeah.
Okay. What did he say 3 weeks ago?
It's digital gold.
Here to stay.
Right.
Institutions are going to own it. I'm going to do an ETF. And you probably want to own some to protect yourself against devaluation of the currency.
Right. Right.
Do you see there?
My mind exploded.
Do you see there ever being a time though when central banking is ripped out of the system? Like
Anthony, such a good question. See, and the great thing about this format, right? Dialogue and debate and search of truth.
Yeah.
Is not the answers. It's the questions.
Right.
Yeah.
That question is what we should focus on, right? Is there a point at which this technology, this innovation that allows the people, right, to take back control from the government, their monetary freedom, right? Thomas Jefferson said, if people ever allow banks to issue money, they'll find their grandkids wake up homeless and penniless on the shores of the country their forefathers conquered.
Yeah.
And it's because of central banks, because central banks can, by fiat, by decree, devalue the currency, right?
Yeah.
First 244 years of this republic, right? America's a republic. It's actually not a democracy. It's a republic. So we're a republic. 244 years. $10 trillion.
Right.
Yeah. Last 4.
Next 3 years, $10 trillion.
Right.
Yeah.
So what happened if I had 10 trillion and I printed another 10 trillion? The value fell by 50%.
Right.
So what should have happened? My house should have gone up 50%. It did.
It did.
But my house didn't grow. My house didn't get any more efficient. The money got worse.
Yeah.
Right? Prices of stuff. I went to lunch, right? I went to lunch today and I paid $18 for lunch for myself, for
that's
a
cheap.
pizza and a drink. I mean,
that's
great.
That's insane. I don't live in New York. I live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Yeah.
So your question is, does the emergence of this technology allow us to extricate ourselves from this system? Maybe. Here's why.
Yeah.
Bitcoin, I believe, is digital gold.
Yeah.
What is gold? Gold is the only money that exists in the world. Money is an asset that exists in the absence of a liability. Everything else that we think of as money is currency. It's
Correct.
backed by debt. But all currency sits on top of gold. Gold sits in central bank vaults, and it provides the base layer for governments to issue currency backed by government debt. Okay? And by fiat, they can devalue it, like Jay Leno said. I heard the U.S. government was going to issue a dollar coin. They already have. Yeah. It's called a nickel.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
So the key is, I can opt out. You can opt out. We can all opt out with a portion of our wealth. We can't take all of our wealth, because if we try to take too much of our wealth, the bank says, hey, whoa, that's my money, not your money.
Yeah.
Correct.
Most people don't know this, right? You put your money in the bank. It's not your money anymore. It's the bank's
Correct.
money. And you have an IOU, and that IOU is good most of the time. But I had this experience. The first time I tried to transfer money to Coinbase, Bank of America said, nope, 14 days.
Yeah.
What do you mean 14 days?
Right.
So did you read the fine print? I'm like, of course I didn't read the fine print, asshole.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I'm like, you signed the agreement 14 days because we don't like where you're sending it.
Correct.
Okay, but you have to eventually send it, which they did. But I tried to transfer more than $50,000 once. I'm like, nope, can't do that.
Nope.
Got to wait a week.
Crazy.
What do you mean I have to wait a week?
It's my money.
Like, that's all you can transfer. So you can't put all of your wealth easily into it, but all of us can put a portion. And a portion today is all you need, because just like gold, none of us have all our money in gold.
Yeah.
Now, if our parents had gold, they were criminals, right?
Yeah.
Because on 4533, the U.S. government made it illegal until 1975. So for 42 years, you were a criminal if you had gold. Did everybody turn in their gold to government? No. Plenty of people had it in vaults and safe deposit boxes and in jewelry and chalices, but you were a criminal. So no one has all their money in gold.
Yeah.
Some people have a little bit of gold, some run of money. And so the same thing is Bitcoin. So this thing on Cathie and her 25 trillion. Cathie is a hyperbolist.
Yeah.
That's what she does.
Yeah.
And directionally, she's always right. Directionally, she's always right.
So there's some truth to what she's saying.
Directionally.
Oh, yeah.
100%, right? But she exaggerates, like, to a level that should not be allowed.
So
like, you shouldn't be able to say Tesla's going to be a $4,000 stock. That's just dumb.
It's inaccurate.
There's no, if they sold every car in the world and had tech multiples, you couldn't get there. But
so do you feel comfortable answering a question where somebody asks you, what's the valuation of this industry by 2030? Do you give a number, or is it something you're clear of?
Sure, but I'll tell you how I do it, right? So if I believe that the Bitcoin is digital gold.
Yeah.
So today it's $1 trillion. It's about $500 billion of Bitcoin, $500 billion of other. So Bitcoin today is about $500 billion.
Yeah.
The monetary value of gold is $5 trillion.
Right.
Okay. So that's 10 times from here.
Correct.
Every halving, we add a zero. Every halving, we 10x the value of the network. And that's just the way Metcalfe's law math works. So we went from 10 to 100, 100 to 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000.
Right.
next April, 100,000 becomes the new fair value. So at 100,000, we're at about 1.5 trillion. So we're a third of the way to that 5 trillion. I'll say by the next halving, which would be 28, easily, we're through the 5 trillion. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a 10.
That's where we're headed.
And that's Bitcoin. But okay, now it's Bitcoin. Now she is saying the entire industry.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
but she said out of that 25 trillion, Bitcoin's basically is half of that, is what she's indicated.
Exactly. But here's the problem.
Yeah.
So let's say the half stays the same. So if Bitcoin's 5, that's 10. And Raul Paul and Dan, I'm blanking on Dan's last name. But and he's going to be mad at me when he sees this, and I can't remember his last name. The macro, Tapiero, Dan Tapiero.
Okay.
So Dan and Dan Morehead have all said, no, it's more like 10 trillion over the next 5 or 6 years. So that's perfectly logical. Now, what was her time frame? So 6.5 years.
2030.
So to get to 25 in 6.5 years, you have to do a math problem that you can't replicate.
Okay.
So what she's probably saying is, and again, I'm dug into it, but the only way she could get to 25 would be to say, if you look at Web 1 and Web 2, all of the wealth, okay, was created above the protocol layer.
Yep.
Correct.
Right? TCP/IP, not worth anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you can argue that Akamai is kind of protocol-ish. I mean, it's software that accelerates the internet. So, but it's a company, and the equity is so it's really not, you don't own the protocol, you own the intellectual property. But I could kind of say maybe that's protocol. And that's kind of Web 2. But in Web 1, 2 trillion, Web 2, 5 trillion, Web 3, 15 trillion, because we start to go non-linear, parabolic.
Yep.
Okay. So at 15 trillion, if you add that 15 to the 10 of the protocol layer, and you take all of Web 3, okay, that's 25. Now, I probably wouldn't say that you can do that. I think what she's saying is, at 650K, she's saying Bitcoin is about a $12 trillion asset.
Okay.
So she's basically saying that Bitcoin's a $12 trillion asset. The rest of crypto is $12 trillion asset.
The only way you're doing that is tokenizing half of the real world assets in existence on Ethereum. Right. Pretty much.
Exactly. And to that point, there's 700 trillion of assets in the world.
Yeah.
Stocks, bonds, currencies, commodities, private equity, real estate, everything, fine art, collectible cars. If you tokenize all that and you claim that that's now on chain, okay, I mean, maybe you can count that, but I don't think that's what she's saying. I think what she's saying is Bitcoin is so if we're at 26, let me get that math right. If she's 650 divided by 26, is 25. So yeah, she's saying 12.5. I was right, 12.5. So she's saying that's 12.5, and she's saying the rest is 12.5. But here's the thing. I believe Bitcoin's growth rate is going to be different than the others. Like, I think Ethereum's good.
Yeah.
But I actually don't think Ethereum is going to capture the same monetary value as Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is essentially replacing the monetary value of gold.
But as a settlement layer, Ethereum is better than Bitcoin.
100%. And this is where it gets really interesting. So
and there's the 7 trillion.
This is where she could be right? And again, this is why your question is so important. So if Bitcoin is the base layer, right, and it's digital gold, my number of 5 is probably better than her number of 12.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the only way you get to 12.5 is if you're on your way to Murray Stahl's 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
Murray runs Horizon Kinetics, and he makes a very elegant argument for the reverse Gresham's law, where good money crowds out bad, which is the inverse of what's happened over history, where bad money crowds out good.
Yeah.
But he says that over time, all money will be Bitcoin because it's superior tech. He makes me seem bearish, right? And I love Murray, and I think he's right. I just think it's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
But let's say my 5 number, let's even call it 6. So 6 is the base layer. We'll give it a little inflation. So 6 is the base layer. To your point, Anthony, all the rest of money, the settlement layer, like right now, gold's at the bottom, FedWire, ACH, Visa, and MasterCard, right?
Yeah.
I use my Visa card every single day.
Yep.
I don't carry money. And it's not even money. It's a database that tracks my transactions over 30 days. And once every 30 days, it settles up at the next layer down, which settles up on a periodic basis with the next layer down, which is supported by the gold at Fort Knox if it still exists.
Right.
In theory. Yeah.
In theory. Right.
Yeah.
So to your point, could Ethereum stay as the next layer? So I struggle with I call them 3 mental models. So if you think about the internet, there are 5 protocols that matter. There used to be 80 protocols. Today there are 5. There's TCP/IP, which we're using right now to communicate, voice over IP. Then we have FTP to move files. We have HTTP to send emails. We have SMTP to send emails, HTTP to have websites, and www that kind of ties it all together. So I can make the case that Bitcoin is the TCP/IP, that Filecoin is like FTP.
Yeah.
That Ethereum's kind of like the www ties it all together. You can build things on it. And I struggle is it Cosmos or Polkadot or Avalanche or Solana? I don't know, but I can make that argument. Second argument, the maxis, one chain to rule all chains.
Yeah, it's not.
Bitcoin, Lightning, L3, L4. Maybe. Maybe. It's not scaling fast enough, but maybe.
Yeah.
You need a really good L3. I mean, you need a really, really good innovation at L3 because Bitcoin is not fast.
Yeah.
But it's secure.
No, from a
TCP
perspective, it's
for the base layer.
Terrible. Yeah.
But it's not going to be a transaction layer. Lightning, okay, but still not blazingly fast. And maybe L3, L4 we get. And then there's we're going to have lots of L1s and we're going to have all these bridges. I like the L1 idea, different L1s to do different things.
Yeah.
But bridges.
There should be optionality between L1s, but bridges create vulnerabilities. I mean, all the hacks have happened on bridges.
Exactly, yeah. Anthony. Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I just can't get behind that model. So that takes me back to the first model, which is, okay, if Bitcoin, let's say Cathie's right, and Bitcoin's 12.5, could Ethereum be 10?
If you replaced ACH and Swift with Ethereum as a settlement layer globally,
and this is where the XRP guys,
that 7 trillion's there from the get-go.
But here's, and this is interesting. So this is where the XRP army comes in. So they all want me to love XRP, right?
Yeah.
And here's my issue. They're going after Swift.
Yeah.
And someone is going to win. Swift is a horrible system.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you how bad it is. So we had a situation where a client got hacked. And somehow the hacker was in their email with a bot or something. So when we sent them an email saying, we're about to send you a wire.
We lose him?
We lost Anthony. But his bot sent us back an email saying, here are my new wire instructions. And it came from his email, so we didn't think anything of it. And we sent it to the new email address. Well, it turns out it was fraud. It was a bot.
Right.
And so we called the bank and said, hey, can you help us try to track where this went? And they said, well, we lost the Swift message. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean you lost this? Well, we printed out the facts and we lost it.
Yeah.
You did what? There's no electronic record. There's no searchable, immutable file. There's a lost piece of paper for this transaction. So that has to go away. And the XRP people will say, well, that's what we're doing. That's what Ripple's doing. That's what XRP is going to be. Well, I haven't seen any evidence of that yet, except a lot of talk by Garlinghouse and others.
Yeah.
But you did recently hear the BIS and a couple others make noises. And I talked about this the other day, that if I'm the Rothschilds,
Yeah.
because they own BIS and Standard Chartered and all this stuff. I just wouldn't say own, but there are these treaties that make sure that they get paid when money moves across international borders. Again, 400-year-old technology, it just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But if I saw this Bitcoin thing happening, I would fight back, right?
100%.
And I would fight back by regulation and try to choke off.
And that's exactly what's happening right now.
And that's what's happening. But I would also experiment with my own little system.
Yeah.
I'd probably have it be a more centralized system that I could control, because I like centralization because I'm the BIS.
And I have no doubt that's what's happening. They're talking about.
And see, that's what I think could be happening. So if it sets up, in my mind, of a Bitcoin and Ethereum and more decentralized versus XRP centralized, they lose.
Right.
And I know they don't want me to say that, but then they lose. And so I think it's more likely that Ethereum continues to be the building layer for other solutions for, L3s and L4s and.
Well, Mark,
but I don't know. And
Mark, I think the big thing here is just like, what I love having you on, and I find our viewers really like, is that, like you said, everybody likes to throw numbers around, but break them down for me. And where do you come up with those numbers and why? And I think that's the important thing. And some of the things that you've said in the past about having on is that you've gone out and reestablished, you've adapted with the times. You're looking at, you looked at it as an age bracket where there's the world of 35 and under and 35 and older.
Yep.
So we look at the SEC, it's lost 2 major lawsuits recently, which is an eye-opener to say the least.
Yep.
You're a former hedge fund manager who obviously has a lot of contacts with institutions.
Mm-hmm.
Is the sentiment changing? Yes, it's changing, but how much is it changing?
Great question. And absolutely the sentiment's changing. Look, all new technology is originally resisted. Right? It just makes sense. I mean, you're doing really well as an incumbent and you really like the profits that you're making from your business and you don't want to be disrupted. So if you're running a horse, you don't want, right? Horseless carriages to show up. Or if you're running a train network, you don't want the airplane to show up. Or if you're running, voice over copper wires, you don't want the internet. You don't want people to be able to talk long distance for free. That sucks for you. So you're going to do everything you can through regulation and bribery and corruption and cronyism to try to stop it.
Yep.
But eventually, good technology prevails, right?
Is this a generational thing? Mark, is this a generational thing?
It is definitely generational in the sense, a couple things. One, innovation comes from young people.
Yeah.
Right? Because they don't know any better. And us old guys, we're tired, right? We're comfortable. And comfort is the enemy of alpha.
And think about America. America's arguably the best economy for the last 100 years. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So,
and we're comfortable. And so where's all the innovation happening? It's happening in hubs all around the world. It's happening on Silicon Savannah in Kenya, and it's happening in Berlin, of all places, and it's happening in Eastern Europe, and it's happening in Latin America. It doesn't mean it's not happening in America. There are definitely innovators here, but as a society, we are softer. And, we've all heard the line, right? Whatever it is, hard times create.
Oh, I love that.
Hard people.
Hard times create hard men. Hard men create good times. Good times create soft
people. Soft people create bad times.
Love it.
And that's where we are. We're softer than we should have been, and we're probably going to suffer for it. But my real answer to your question is there is a generational change, not just because of the innovation, but because the boomers, me and my brethren and sisterin, we worked really hard to build up the largest nest egg the world has ever seen.
100%.
Now, part of that is just inflation and devaluation of currency and luck and timing and all that good stuff. But there was a lot of hard work and a lot of innovation. And so we own, $37 trillion with a T. But we're all going to pass away. Every single last one of us is going to pass away. And we're going to leave that capital to the echo boomers, of which there are now more than the boomers.
Right.
And those echo boomers are in a different place. And the Zoomers, right, the next generation down, my grandkids, my granddaughter, I say this all the time, right? She will never have one of these.
Right.
She will never have a leather wallet. Not ever. She will never know what paper money is. And it won't bother her, right? Because now she's probably not going to have Jetsons flying cars either, because that's never going to happen. But I shouldn't say never, but
never say never.
She's not going to live on Mars either. But
never say never.
She's probably going to see autonomous driving. She probably won't have a driver's license, and she certainly won't have a leather wallet.
Yeah.
And that generation will be comfortable with the innovations. And the other reason it's generational is every generation suffers from the memory of the crisis in their lifetime. So if you think about the Depression babies, they would never borrow money.
Ever.
Right? Ever. Like this thing, they didn't have
credit cards.
They would never have a credit card. No way. If it didn't have cash, they weren't buying it.
Exactly.
And, I always think if that were called a debt card, how much would you use it?
Right.
You never use it. Why is credit good? If you have a big credit line, you're a big man or a big woman. If you have a lot of debt, you're a bum. But it's the same thing. Debt and credit are the same thing. But that Depression era generation, they didn't expand. They hoarded, and they didn't lend, and they didn't borrow, and they had decent lives. But what happened is then we had this giant war, and we
World War II. You had Europe decimated.
And we came back as heroes. And what happened? The boomers had babies, lots of them, like more than any other time. And those kids grew up with new technology.
Yep.
And they got comfortable with television and eventually the internet and computing, and innovation accelerated. And I had this great chart, and it shows, for the first 1,400 years, innovation was very stagnant. The wheel and the horse and buggy and the lever and mechanical machines and the discovery of oil. And then it starts to accelerate.
Yeah.
And in the last 50 years, think about this. In the last 50 years, in my lifetime, we've gone from, old clunky Buicks and Cadillacs to electric cars that can go 60 miles an hour in 2.8 seconds.
I know.
mean, that's amazing.
You don't see so many clunky cars on the road anymore.
And we've sent, things into space that can look down over your shoulder and read the paper on your desk, from space. I mean,
Yeah.
so the things that are happening are just at a different level. And it's because, as Sir Isaac Newton said, right, I stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not that smart. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
you're really smart. But he
Yeah.
says, no. I just stand on the shoulders of really, really smart people. And that's what's happening is the people who invented the first internet protocols were mad geniuses.
Right.
But there were like 7 connected dots in the DARPANET. And then eventually there were more. And eventually those protocols got narrowed down. And eventually we adopted TCP/IP as the standard. And eventually we got client server technology. Do you remember? I mean, you're almost old enough to remember waiting like 3 minutes for your computer to turn on.
Yeah.
Like literally, my first computer took 3 minutes to boot up.
Right.
And now, if I have to wait 3 seconds, I'm unhappy.
Totally. It's where we are in society too.
Exactly. And so innovation builds over the next 50 years will increase innovation a quadrillion fold.
Think about that. We don't know what that looks like, but
people don't know what it looks like. You can't comprehend how exponential growth really works.
And that's why we're experiencing so much change so rapidly right now, because we've been set in a way for so long, but we need to embrace change. And I think a lot of the times people that are afraid to embrace change is because it's the fear of losing control. And I think that's where we are right now, especially in America, with a lot of people understanding that, no, I don't want this, but at the same time too, there's something here that we need to pay attention to.
Well, and I hate to pick on the guy because I actually feel really, really sorry for him right now, as I do a number of people in our government. But I saw the clip of Mitch McConnell today.
I know.
Where he literally froze, like his brain stopped for a minute.
That's twice now in a matter of...
And that's twice. And that is, it's horrifying and it's scary. And I feel for his family. I mean, because I have a family member who's not at that level, but inching toward that level. And it is super scary and it's horrifying, but those people can't be in charge.
No.
Because they can't govern right. They can't make decisions right.
Yeah.
And there's this crazy video. And I say crazy because his hair was funny and, we all wore funny clothes in the 70s, of Joe Biden at 35 years old.
Okay.
Pounding the table saying, you need to pass the torch. You old people in government need to let, my generation take over. It's time to pass the torch, dude.
Wow.
And it's just time to pass the torch. And so we need, and look, as much as I like him, Vivek's probably not going to get elected, right?
That is a great
he's
example.
super smart. He's super smart. He's super articulate, but the reason he won't get elected to me is the same reason that Mitt Romney didn't get elected.
Which is?
When you're super smart and you're super capable, everything you say will be twisted the wrong way. And when you're put on the spot, you're generally a nice person. You're not there to fight and spar. And I remember
are you referring to Vivek right now, or who are you referring to? You're okay.
Well, Vivek and Mitt Romney. I think
right.
both had the same issue. When Mitt was running for president, he was by far the most qualified guy.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, the guy's a mad genius, super successful, built an amazing business, saved the Olympics in Salt Lake City, Gap family, beautiful kids, beautiful wife. He's handsome. He's smart. Should have been president, right?
Yeah.
But people took everything he said the wrong way and they twisted it, and he didn't know how to fight. Like I remember this thing intently because it was so crazy. He was down here in the South at an NRA event.
Okay.
And someone said, so, what do you think about hunters? And all he should have said was, we didn't do a lot of hunting up in Boston, but I think you guys should have all the rights you have, right? Instead, he says, I'm a hunter. And someone went like, Mitt, what do you hunt? Like, well, we shot squirrels in the backyard. I'm like, stop, dude. This is not going to work. And of course that got twisted 10 ways from Sunday. And so that was one of many situations where he was too nice and he wouldn't fight back. And I think if you think about our system, it's not designed to put the best, most competent, most polished person in office, because most times those people are just good people and they don't want to go down in the sewer and fight the street fight. So
Anthony's back, but this is
What's up, guys?
listen, this has been great.
It's a history lesson.
What's that?
It's a history lesson.
Oh, this was
well, again, it's only a history lesson because I'm old. But I was talking to someone earlier.
The thing that's amazing about you, Mark, is just like you're adapting with the times. You're embracing change.
Yeah.
And what we like to have on this podcast are people with years of experience that have connections that can educate our viewers on what the future looks like pertaining to the verticals that we cover, which is what you've explained.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that. I just want to talk to you about history.
Yeah, but here's why that is. I say my life's just a series of happy accidents, and I've been very lucky. Now, two things about luck. One, they say it's where preparation meets opportunity.
Right.
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
But I also believe what TJ said, Thomas Jefferson, I'm rather fond of luck, and it seems the harder I work, the more of it I have. So I do believe both of those.
It's very true.
But I've been super lucky. And the reason I've been lucky, for 30 years, I got paid to go around the world and talk to the smartest people in the world.
Yeah.
And give them money. That was my job. I was an allocator of capital, and I've met, it's unbelievable. Nobel laureates, kings, titans of industry, best managers on the planet. And that doesn't mean I'm smart, but I had the privilege to be with them. And I always said, if I couldn't learn something from doing that, right? You could spend an hour with Myron Scholes and you don't learn something, or Harry Markowitz, or Julian Robertson, or Paul Tudor Jones, and that's not name dropping to name drop. That's just, I was really lucky. I got to spend time with these people. Now, just by happenstance, right? Because my friend, Dan Morehead, called me to San Francisco 10 years ago and said, hey, I'm shutting down my hedge fund. I'm going to spend the rest of my career in Bitcoin and blockchain. And look, I was not running drugs on Silk Road. I was not, cryptography student 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't get it. 10 years ago, I didn't get it. But when he said blockchain is an operating system, the same way that DOS and Windows are operating systems, same way that TCP/IP is, like, oh, I get that. I'm in. I made a lot of money in operating systems.
Yeah.
But it took me a while on Bitcoin, and I did eventually get there. And I was joking. I got introduced to Bitcoin the same month as the Winklevoss twins. They're multi-billionaires, and I'm not, because they were with Charlie Shrem and I wasn't. But Ibiza, whatever it was. But I now am super lucky because I've spent the last 7 years hanging out with young people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable. Passionate, idealistic, unharmed young people. When I mean unharmed, meaning when you go through your career, you get beat down, you make mistakes, you have failures, and you're afraid. You don't want to risk what you have to go. You don't want to give up the good to go for the great. And there aren't very many people like Jeff Bezos who quit one of the best jobs in the world at D.E. Shaw.
Yeah.
Now, maybe he didn't have the best job, but it was a great job. And drove across country and slept on a guy's couch and pitched people to back his, internet book company. And most people are like, no, you're an idiot. No, he's not an idiot.
No.
But there aren't very many like him. But there are so many people when they're young that they're willing to think big. And
then they get comfortable.
And two things. I said, comfort is the enemy of alpha.
Yep.
And when people are comfortable, they don't innovate. And so in times of disruption and crisis, like what we've gone through the last 2 years, the survivors survive.
That's an understatement.
Failure isn't fatal.
I can tell you 5 years ago around this time, I collapsed at work, working for a mainstream media company under so much stress. And I was off for a full year.
Wow.
I had job offers to go to competitors, but the only thing that motivated me was to start this idea, this media platform. And it's on a lot of ways, it probably saved my life because
For sure.
it's inspiring. And then I think about meeting people like Anthony and his friends and his network and the places it's traveled. I met Noah and Dan from Advisor Shares that then led me to you. And I think people need to really look deep down inside and understand, like, and write it down. What does success look like to you, right?
Yeah.
That's all that matters, what it looks like to you.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing because so many of us are taught, right? We're inculcated with this idea that success is a job at a name brand firm and climbing your way up the ladder and working yourself to death.
No.
What you should really invert it, right? When you're young, you should take huge risk. You should go with the startup. You should go with the friend who has the crazy idea. You should travel the world. You should try things that you think might make an impact. Because if you fail, it's not very costly.
I know.
Michael Steinhardt used to talk about this in hedge funds. Said, make all your mistakes when you're young.
I know.
Correct.
Because you don't have any money to really worry about. So just make them all. And then when you get older and you have some money, you'll actually be good at this. Because one of my favorite lines in investing, I have a lot of good lines in investing, but one of my favorites is from my buddy out in California who started a hedge fund.
Yeah.
And he used to work at this firm called Farallon, a very famous firm. And, Tom ran for president and all this stuff. But
whatever happened to Tom Steyer?
Yeah, Tom Steyer.
Yeah.
Bill Duhamel worked for him. And Bill's a really interesting story. His family ran a cable company. He worked in the cable company, and then he decided he wanted to get in hedge funds. He went to work for super smart. And he went to work for Tom, and then decided to go out on his own. He built this great business. But when you walk into his office, you'd walk by it 10 times out of 10. It's not fancy or anything. And he has a paper. So a paper sign on a cube as you walk in. And it says, with every investment, we get richer or wiser.
Right.
Never both. And because when you make money, you don't learn anything. Because you're like, look how smart I am. That was easy. You don't think about it. You don't analyze it. You don't think about what you did right. You don't think about when you lose money.
You learn quick.
You learn.
But the difference is losers as opposed to winners. So there's winners and losers in the world. Losers actually don't lose that often because they're paralyzed at the fear of loss or failure. They don't act.
Right.
Yeah.
Winners lose all the time.
Yeah.
They lose way more than losers, but they cut their losses short and they fail fast and they fail forward, to quote Will Smith before it was uncool to quote Will Smith. But here's the thing. Two things on this, and it come from sports. Dean Smith, famous coach here at Carolina, said, we all make mistakes, right? But the people who deal with mistakes, Ralph, recognize them. Okay, that's hard enough.
Yeah.
I made a mistake. Admit it. That's the hard one.
Yeah.
That means, the ego has to get checked.
Accountability.
Learn from it. But then the most important, the F, forget it. Because the other coach, 9 miles down the road the other way, who shall remain nameless, no, Coach K. I got to spend some time with him once, and there's two things that were funny. One, he said about halfway through the discussion, Mark, we have the same job. Like, okay, coach, humor me. What do I have in common with like one of the greatest coaches in the world? I actually don't see it. He said, well, think about it. We both scour the world for talent. We both recruit that talent.
Yeah.
We both put a team together. We draw up a game plan. We put the team on the court and we sit down. He says, I never take a shot. You actually never make a trade. I'm like, oh my God.
That's why
I like,
that's
oh my
the brilliance.
God.
It's the brilliance of Coach K.
Then he says, and this is great. He says, and what separates the great players from the average players? I'm like, no, but you're going to tell me, right? And he says, the average player always focuses on the last play. How many times have you seen someone miss a shot, go back and commit a stupid foul?
Yeah.
How many times, right? He says the great player always focuses on the next play. The great player doesn't even remember taking the shot.
Right.
Yeah.
They just go back and play good defense, steal the ball, make a layup. Michael Jordan says, I missed 9,617 shots.
He doesn't remember one
I
of them.
don't even remember taking them.
Yeah.
But when the game was on the line, give me the fucking ball.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever seen the picture of him guarding Magic Johnson. It is the eye.
Is that the one where his tongue's sticking out, or that's like the fierce eyes?
Yeah. If I could have that intensity,
I know,
any time in my life, I would be amazing.
I love the line that he gave Larry and Magic on the bus in Barcelona in '92. I appreciate what you've done for the game, but understand there's a new sheriff in town. And and there was.
I love it. And again, he hated to lose more than anything. And I ask people that all the time. Do you love to win or do you hate to lose? People say it's the same. I'm like, no, it's not.
Well, think about how much he loves to win and hates to lose. Yeah. He still, 30 years later, has not spoken to Isaiah Thomas.
I know.
There's a competitor, right? But I think
he's an interesting guy.
I think.
But look, we've covered a lot of ground, and I always appreciate that with y'all, and happy to do this anytime. So
love talking with you. I think the big takeaway, more than anything, from what you said today, is preparation creates opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love chatting with you.
I'd love to talk to you about the NFT market as well.
Let's do that again. Yeah, we'll set it up in a couple of weeks and do that. Look, NFTs. I'll leave you with this. The term NFT, non-fungible token, is perfectly accurate.
Yeah.
And I believe every asset in the world, anything that can be titled, will be an NFT, a non-fungible token.
Yeah.
But we need to ditch that term and replace it with digital property rights.
Right.
Correct.
What we're talking about is the right to own something in a permanent, immutable ledger.
Yep.
And NFTs make people think monkey JPEGs.
Correct.
Yes, they are that.
But digital property actually makes
they are an entry on a ledger that says that I own something, or Anthony owns something, or Shad owns something. And digital ownership is superior to electronic ownership, is superior to analog ownership. Oh, yeah. And the last thing I'll leave is my wife, for Christmas, she gives me concert tickets. That's my thing. I love music. And we went to Foreigner this year. We went to 2 farewell tours, Journey and Foreigner, which were amazing. And it's kind of wild, though. Journey, only 1 of the original members was there, and Foreigner, 0 of the 6 original members were there, but they're still good. But the funny thing about analog to electronic to digital, when I was in college, I lent my Foreigner album, the original album, to Lucky Rodriguez, and he never gave it back. And I'm still pissed about that. So if anyone listening knows where Lucky Rodriguez is, tell him I want my Foreigner album back.
Yeah.
And 10 years later, they invented this thing called Napster, which kind of alleviated that, because now I could make a electronic copy of a song and send it to Lucky through file sharing, and he could listen. But the music industry didn't like that. So it's a centralized organization, 1 CEO, 1 server. You arrest Sean Parker, blow up the server, end of company. In the digital age, the amazing thing is now we all pay for what we need.
Yes.
The writers actually get paid. The performers actually get paid. The middle people are getting squeezed, which is good because they aren't really necessary. And in the NFT world, so actually, no, this is the last one. So a year ago, just over a year ago, there was this song, Crypto Boy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Girl that made it. And I'm not going to lie. I listened to it a lot. I thought it was snappy, kind of like Avril Lavigne, Skater Boy. I kind of thought it was a decent song. And the guy rapping on the washer, he was hilarious.
Yes. Oh yeah.
But I liked it. I'm not too proud to say it. But here's the thing. In it, she says, I don't want to hear about your NFTs. Say NFT one more time. I guarantee we're not, whatever.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, when she did the open verse challenge on TikTok,
I
wrote, and I was going to do a response And then my daughter said, Dad, you cannot do TikTok. No. No. But I was going to say, look, I hear you, hon. You don't want to hear about my NFTs. But here's the thing. You made this song. It's getting lots of likes.
Yeah.
Climbing up the charts. Okay. But here's the thing. You're not getting rich. ByteDance is getting rich. If you made an NFT, right, then
pulling royalties off of
you'd be going to the moon instead of ByteDance. Maybe the only screwing being done is on Web 2.
Yeah.
Correct.
So,
and no better example of that right now than this global tour of Taylor Swift that's estimated to do $2 billion. And I give that woman credit for what she's done. And I applaud her for how she's given back. But that is a clear example of digital ownership right there.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. But then the funny part is, to the end of the story, Pussy Riot actually brought her on stage and made an NFT.
Really?
So she is getting some royalties from the song. But, ByteDance made a lot of money off TikTok because everybody gives them content for free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we, as owners in Web3, the creators own our content and our information and our data, that's huge. So topic for another day, but the future is really, really bright as we go from the read Web 1, read write Web 2, read write own Web 3.
Oh yeah.
The world as we know it is going to change forever.
Rapidly changing.
But it needs to, as we discussed. You got lost there for a minute for your internet signal.
Well, as the song said, it's the end of the world as we know it. And
it is
fine.
Yeah.
Can we hear you sing that as we close?
That was as close to singing as you're going to get me. All right, guys.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, thank you, Mark.
Take care. So what'd you all think of the interview? Did you like what we recorded with our guests? Then leave a comment below and let us know what you thought of it. And if there's any more questions you want us to ask, as usual, share this video with your network. Click on that bell for all notifications. And most importantly, subscribe to our channel because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.